Buenos Dias Gunners Collective. Back at it, you already know. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. Like a mother. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. Like a motherfucking smack at it. Bye-yap. Bye-yap. Yes, indeedy. I wrote graffiti on the bus. Back at it like a motherfucking smack at it. And as you can tell by that thumbnail right there, we are talking about the top 10 gangs, groups, organizations, or clubs on the Fed's radar. These are gangs or groups that give the feds nightmares. Sasuke got them working overtime, got them putting in much work. They spent on the tiras early, putting in much work, but at the same time, doing what they have to do, allegedly, to keep the streets safe from these groups. Now, I know there's a lot of different gangs out there in this world, a lot of dangerous groups, right? A lot of groups that are just doing their own thing. And I know to each person, their value is number one, should be number one on the lista and all that. But at the same time, in the meantime, in between time, what I'm talking about here is ones that popped up to me, stand out to me. And I know that the feds are looking at them quite extensively because of the threat that they supposedly pose to the public safety and security. Now, you have to understand, I've done time with a lot of individuals throughout my lifetime. A lot of different gangs, a lot of different cliques, a lot of different clubhouses, organizations. And I will say that every different gang, every different group poses a potential threat. Every different group carries themselves like they should. You know, a lot of them with humbleness, respectfulness, and pride. Pride of their value, pride of their group, and they're down for their cause. Now, I myself was part of a certain organization, and I was down for my cause. I continue to give love for that struggle, but at the same time, I understand that I am not involved, right? By any means necessary. But let's get straight to it without too much being civic, because obviously, you know the gun. I'll keep going on and on and on. That's just what I do. And in that fashion, let's talk about number 10, a very well-known club. You know, a very well-known club in the state of California and now have spread throughout the world. And we're talking about the Mongol Motorcycle Club. Yes, indeed, there's been a long history there of the Mongol Motorcycle Club. These vatos, founded, you know, in Los Angeles, California, East LA, are a very known motorcycle club. Now, are they looked at as a criminal organization? Maybe to some, maybe to the feds, they're looked at as a criminal organization. And I know they were in a long, outstanding war with the feds in a battle. But at the same time, in the meantime, in between time, at the end of the day, this is nothing more than a motorcycle club, a 1% outlaw motorcycle club that are just trying to ride free, live free, and die free. They're not trying to be a threat to the safety and security of the people. Actually, a lot of these guys are 9-to-5ers. They're just out there trying to ride and be brothers. You know, this is a brothership, a brotherhood. A group of men that are rebellious in nature, yet are not going out there and beating up on people and trying to impose their will on people. They're just trying to ride. Now, of course, several years back, the feds started to monitor them, started to look at them for being a criminal organization, and they were in a real big battle with the feds over their patch, over their symbolization. And I know that this is still being drawn out in court. This is still being fought. They're fighting the good fight as they should for their club, for their foundation, for their people. But they're definitely a group that are on the Fed's radar. We're talking about the Mongol Motorcycle Club. Coming in at number 9, of course, a group I'm pretty familiar with. We're talking about La Nuestra Familia. The Nuestra Familia was a group that was founded in the 60s in California. And quite contrary to what a lot of people think, without giving you the extensive background, because we've done that in other videos and a lot of people have done that online. You can Google it, vatos. This group was sprung out of the ashes from oppression, okay? They thought they were being oppressed by a group that was around at that time, La M, so they decided that if for no other reason, they wouldn't take into the M, they would start their own splinter group, their own organization. And that they did, and they're still here after 50 years plus. Of course, there's been a long war that was fought for many years between the M and the Mexican Mafia and Nuestra Familia, the Nuestra Familia. At the same time, in these latter years, it has kind of simmered down, and there is an end to hostilities where both groups are not necessarily working hand in hand, but doing their own thing to maintain on those yardas and to do their thing on the calles. Now, allegedly, I say all this, they are not a group that necessarily you will see. They're a very clandestine group. They are only heard of, but hardly ever seen. This is a group, like I said, that flies under the radar and tends to do their own thing. A lot of their secretive rules and regulations, we will keep right there with them out of respect, because that's what they do. But I will say that there's been a misconception over the years that they are a northern group. Yes, they derive a lot of their manpower from the north, being Northern California. But that is not necessarily the truth. They were actually a group that was started by several Southern California natives that, over years and over time, became looked at as a northern group because of the soldados and the manpower from which they choose from, basically the territory and the land of the north. Now, at the same time, this is not a group that is just contained to California. They have spread throughout the Western United States as well as just the United States, period. And a very dangerous group, that hold their own in prison on these yardas. I know that if any NF members on the yard, the feds, the cops, everyone is monitoring them, looking at them because they think that these guys pose an absolute potential danger to those yardas or those guys. At the same time, man, they're just like any other group, just trying to do their own thing and wiggle with a lot of history behind them. Very much so, I will say, respects to this group. Now, the 8th on the list, sounds good. They could be higher, they could be lower, but this is the 8th on the list. La M, the Mexican Mafia, right? Now, I say this with all due respect, just like I do with the NF. This is a group that was organized out of oppression as well. They've been around since the late 50s, early 60s, and they are comprised of predominantly Latinos from Southern California who came together to form a group for self-protection, to protect other inmates and other convicts from the persecution and the oppression of the white groups, the Africano groups, different groups that were deeper at the time. Latinos had to come together because they were tired of people trying to punk them or run up on them. So at the same time, they formed a very clandestine group in the beginning, and then the fight for power and the struggle for dominance became the number one thing. There's several rules and regulations that go into being one of these members. If you are considered a made member of this group, allegedly, you are the one. Now, of course, the feds have had their radar on this group for many, many years. There have been several RICO indictments, several different cases that have went into trying to shut this group down, which I don't think will ever happen. But at the same time, they are a group that has definitely had the feds working overtime for many years, and they are on that radar. So, of course, you got to pay respects, you got to pay homage to the founding Latino group in California, the Mexican Mafia. To them, I say it's much respect. So I don't like to speak on their business, just like I don't like to speak on NF business too much, because at the same time, man, living that lifestyle and knowing and being a part of, the manpower that went into these groups, I could say, it's nothing but respects to the founding fathers that are doing their thing. That's no doubt, man. That's always going to be there. Now, number 7 on the lista, of course, is the Aryan Brotherhood. Ooh-wee, right? We're talking about the AB. We're talking about a group that was founded in the late 60s, a very dangerous group. Now, I know they're compiled and comprised of a lot of different white boys throughout California and now throughout the Western United States and everywhere, right? We're talking about Woods. White boys that just consider themselves Woods or consider themselves part of different cliques like Wolfpack, Fresnex, Sacramaniacs, P9 Skins, just a lot of different groups that have come together and come under the umbrella of the Aryan Brotherhood, which is the dominant group of white boys basically putting it down. Now, they're a very treacherous group. They're a group that's been doing this since the 60s, been doing it for a lot of years, and have gained a reputation for viciousness and tenaciousness, meaning that they will take your head off with your head if you fuck with them. Now, they're also looked at as a very racial hate group, but in the end, they're really not that per se. What they are is more of a group that are proud of their skin color, proud of their race, proud of their people, and carry themselves as such. A very respectful people. I have actually been in shoes or oils where I've talked. Yes, sounds good. I talked to a white boy, right, from the Aryan Brotherhood, and it was all respect, man. He kept it very cordial, very respectful, and we had a great conversation. Very intelligent individual. Now, I will say at the end of the day, this is not a group to be slept on, not a group to be played with, and I think the feds know that. They've been caught up in several indictments and several cases over the years, and have definitely made the feds work overtime and definitely put in their work to try to shut down this group. Now, I would say in the state of California, necessarily nowadays, they're not as deep or as known as they used to be. Their name still carries a lot of weight, and quietly as it's kept, they're still wiggling under the radar, allegedly doing their thing. But at the same time, they're more so in the federal system is where they're pretty dominant, okay? But they're a group, like I said, that's been watched for many years and have been known and held it down. So Aryan Brotherhood makes number 7. Number 6 is a group that sprang from the ashes in the 90s, believe it or not, late 80s, 90s, and have been putting it down in the great state of New York for a long time, and especially predominantly New York City, but they are becoming worldwide, meaning they are starting to stretch out all over the place, especially all throughout the East Coast and down south. And we are talking about the Trinitarios. The Trinitarios are a group of youngsters comprised from, I think, the islands of Trinidad, right? And they're dangerous. Okay, they're very known to use machetes, to do a lot of boisterous gangster acts, right? Dangerous acts. Of course, there was a case that just happened in New York a couple years back where allegedly 10 to 12 individuals ran up in a bodega and hacked a youngster to death, right? Because they thought he was a different person, an enemiga. So they're becoming well known in the system in New York, okay, where traditionally you had a lot of Puerto Ricanos, Mexicanos, and Dominicans, the Netas, the Latin Kings, groups and things of that nature, where now the Trinitarios have put their foundation down, they put their stakes down, and they're being watched by the feds. If not only for this one case that basically made national headlines, but for a lot of other little cases that allegedly they are involved in. They are a group that's on the uptake, they're on the uprise, they're really moving and grooving, they're doing their thing, right? Number 5, ¿sabes qué? The wind's blowing. Mara Salvatrucha, MS-13. Now, they've been in the news lately. So they've been in people's bocas lately. People have been talking about MS-13. The list can go on and on and on of the alleged crimes they're accused of and the way this organization moves. Now, they are a group that was started in Hollywood, California, right? MS-13. They were traditionally a rocker stoner group that just were looking for self-preservation. They were just a group of young men trying to preserve their people, trying to be, they come from El Salvadorian descent, so they were trying to be proud of who they are and at the same time protect their own. They weren't really into the gangbanging aspect. Later on through the years, they started to adapt to the LA culture, the cultura of the Chicanos around them, and they started wearing them Ben Davises, oh my, right, Pendletons y todo, and started to look the part of gang members. Of course, over many of years, they have fought several wars, being from El Salvador, being from Central America, and looked at differently because they're not Mexicano. They, of course, are of Latino descent, but they have had a traditional war with Mexicanos for several years, to which they have actually burned the Mexican flag. They have been at war with the M. They continue to fight inner wars amongst each other. This group is a dangerous group. Okay, they are one of the biggest, if not the biggest gang in the world or organization. And their stronghold now have moved from LA to El Salvador, where there are many incarcerated, and they are actually at a guerrilla war right now with their own government. Quite recently, and I spoke on this channel, their president has issued a decree that if they continue to hurt or kill citizens in the streets of El Salvador, he will no longer be feeding them. Okay, imagine that. That's how dangerous this group is. That's how treacherous this group is. That's how mainstream they've become. Of course, in the last administration of the United States, they were put on the radar, the Fed's radar, and they are being looked at and persecuted quite extensively. Now, at the same time, MS-13 is very well known. I have not ran into a whole lot of them. I've ran into a couple of them, and I've had a couple conversations. I will say they are different. The way they wiggle, their cultura, everything is different in the makeup of MS-13, but they are not a group to be slept on, man. They are a group that if you run into them and you get on their bad side, says, get off with your head. And in that fashion, there's a lot of stories that have been spoken on. Lately, what I am hearing is that they're actually at war once again with the Mexican mafia, allegedly. Like I said, I'm not here to speak on either one of their business, but I will say at the same time that will be a very dangerous and deadly war if it really is like that. And we'll see. You know, we can only see, like I said, MS-13's been around for several years. They're going to continue to struggle and strive for their true beliefs and their cause, but they're different, homes. Coming from a Chicano aspect, I will say that the El Salvadorian people just wiggle a little bit differently. Their machete game is way up to par. Do they pose a threat to all Mexicanos? Chale, but they pose a threat to anyone posing a threat to them. That's a known fact. MS-13, like I said, comes in number 5 on this list. Number 4, Amor de Rey, right? Respects to the Latin Kings, the Almighty King Nation. Now, this is a group that was started in Chicago, Illinois, and has spread and has 2 hubs, one in Chicago and one in New York City. Now, this is a very, very big Latino group comprised of all different sects of Latinos, but the predominance of this group are Mexicanos and, of course, Puerto Ricanos. Now, the Latin Kings was started just like any other gang or group organization was started out of the oppression of their people. People were oppressing them. People were tripping on them in their barrios, and they were just trying to maintain. So they felt that if for no other reason, especially in Chicago, being in a predominant Mexican area, that they should start this group called the Almighty King Nation, or excuse me, the Latin King Nation. Of course, they end up deriving the name, the Almighty King Nation, later as they grew, as they started to indoctrinate and educate more youngsters, more people into their plight and their group. The difference with this group, this organization, compared to many others that puts them on the Fed's radar, is they are very, very structured, very organized. They have a lot of different splinter groups, a lot of different sects all over the United States. They have stretched all the way from Texas to fucking Idaho to Saskatchewan are over there right now in Germany. They're like this. King Nation, they're everywhere. The vatos wiggle, right? But at the same time, they have a very big manifesto, a decree, and of several leaders, man. Shout out and respects to all the founding fathers of the Almighty King Nation that have put it down, and the manifestos they have wrote and the intelligence that they have put into it boggles the minds of even the feds, because these vatos are so intelligent, have such an agenda, and such a true belief in their people. It boggles the minds of the average everyday citizen, as well as the feds. You know, of course, there's been several attempts to take this organization down, to which this organization has only multiplied and prospered throughout the years. Shout out to the Almighty King Nation. Of course, they've been involved in a lot of crime, but they've also been involved in a lot of good for their community. They do have a lot of community outreach programs. They do take care of the youth. They do take care of the people, as a lot of these other groups do. But of course, they never talk about that, huh? So I was kidding. They only talk about the bad they do. What about the good in the hood? So I guess that doesn't count, you know. That only counts in bullet shells and hand grenades, I guess. Whatever the case may be, man, the Almighty King Nation deserves their respect, and they make number 4 on this list. Now, number 3 is a group not a lot of people talk about. Not a lot of people even know about. So let's give the winds blowing. This might be even the first time that you guys hear about them. But they're a group that started in El Paso, Texas, on the frontera, meaning the borderline of Juarez, Mexico, and El Paso, Texas. They're a group that is very dangerous. They're a group that works hand in hand with several vatos from Mexico. I don't like to speak their name because I like my head right here. They're the Barrio Aztecas. Okay, Barrio Aztecas are a very well-known and dangerous group on the frontera of El Paso, Texas, and Juarez, like I just said. And I actually seen these vatos, right? Never talked to them because I wasn't trying to have no conversation with these guys because like I said, I like my arm, right? They're dangerous. Okay, they're dangerous. I can't sit here and give you an extensive history into them because they're so clandestine. They move so silently in the shadows that I'd be remiss to say I know all about them when I don't. Okay, but the Barrio Aztecas are a very dangerous group that are involved extensively in the drug trade, the murder for hire trade, allegedly, and things of that nature. They're a group not to be played with. They're a group that work hand in hand, like I said, with a lot of groups in Mexico, and keep it like that. They keep it confined to that area. I know that in the federal prison, they do actually have strongholds in federal prisons. That's mostly where they go. As far as state prison, I couldn't call it like an alcoholic. I've never been to Texas prisons, so I can't tell you how deep they are there or how thick. I do know that their number 1 decree is anybody can get it. They are against everyone who poses a threat to what they got going on. As long as you leave them alone, Saskia, they'll fucking leave you alone. Just leave the Barrio Aztecas alone, because like I said, they're a very mysterious, dangerous group that have been around for a long time, but move in the shadows. Hey, they move like lasagna, very slowly, very quietly, homie, but they move. You feel me? Barrio Aztecas have made number 3 on the list. Number 2 on the list, a very well-known barrio in Los Angeles, a very well-known organization in barrio all over the world now. This barrio has multiplied extensively throughout the years, man, and they've always represented the sur, right? When I say the sur, I mean sur, homie. You see these vatos and you know they're sureños, Southsiders right off the top. That 13 is predominant in their face. On their social, fuck the world, Miklo, right? They're down for their shit, man. Respects to this gang, respects to this organization, respects to this group. I'm talking about Florencia 13. Yes, Florence, right? Straight from South Central Los Angeles, straight from the hardcore streets, cucaraches y todo my of Los Angeles, LA. These vatos have pioneered an organization unlike no other, man. They have proven that this group right here, this gang of friends that started, in the 30s and 40s, are one of the most vicious, vile, dangerous groups in the United States and throughout the world, but also are one of the most respected. You got to respect the way that they get down. And like I said, when I think sur or I think sureños, Florencia and Avenues are probably the first gangs I ever think of because the way that they wiggle and the way I've seen them wiggle in my lifetime, I know they're about that action. They're about that business. Of course, they've come under the Fed's radar for several years. There's been several indictments on several of the top brass or the leaders of this organization, allegedly. And I will say, is it justifiable? Well, you know, I'm not the type to lock people up. I'm not the type to fucking slap the cuffs on them and say that they did it. So no, I don't think it's justifiable. But at the end of the day, they are a group that has been making noise for a lot of years. Now, I remember running into one of these vatos when I was in the youth authority, Crazy Boy from Florencia. Rest in peace, man. Respects to that vato. And I was thinking automatically he had a big old F-13 on his face. This was going to be the target. This was going to be the one to make it happen. This was going to be the one that I was going to see that day. But quite contrary to that, and quietly as it's kept, we ended up becoming good camaradas. We became very good friends. He was one of the funniest vatos I ever met. And he told me a lot about the history of his barrio. Now, of course, it's not just one territory, one barrio. It's different clicas. There's a lot of different division within the clicas. There's a lot of inner turmoil. I know that they're very well known for having a long outstanding war with the East Coast Crips. The Battle for the South is what it was called, man. The East Coast Crips, which is a very big Crip group, if not the biggest, in LA, and Florencia went at it for several years. Now, he told me a little bit about that history and a little bit about the history between him and other gangs, you know, his body and other gangs, and how they've spread and established throughout the world. Now, I know that they're in the East Coast or in the West Coast. Florencia is very well known. That's just how it's been. That's how it's going to be. They are definitely under the Fed's radar. The Fed's been watching them, so it's like, we can't get these vatos. Charlie, man, you ain't never going to get a group that wiggles like that because let me tell you something, man. Like they say, the gangs in LA don't die. They multiply colors. Orale. Now, the number one group, and I know I've left a lot out, you know, like Tango Blast. We're going to speak on Tango Blast extensively in a different spill. Different groups like Texas Syndicate, the Black Guerrilla Family, the Bloods, the Crips. Of course, you guys are getting your guys just due. I'm just talking about groups that right now the Feds are tripping on because it's hard to get a grasp. Number one is 18th Street. I said it. Fill it up with unleaded. I'll take a dub, right? Or Charlie. Shout out to my boy Dubs. I only take hundreds. Now listen, 18th Street. Established and derived from Clanton 14th Street. For those of you that don't know your historia, a very well-known old school barrio. My mother, make sure no one's watching. My mother's from 18, okay, from LA. So I got a lot of familia that have told me stories over the years of Barrio 18. I've been locked up with several individuals from West Side 18, South Side, East Side 18, 18 oh my, everywhere, right? I've been out of state incarcerated with vatos from 18. This group is the largest group in the world when it comes to barrios. Now, MS might be right there, Latin Kings might be right there, but I know 18 is everywhere. Sasuke, there's a vato in Japan right now with the 64 Impala that he bought off eBay for 100 grand, right? 18, oh my. Sasuke, 666 sickness, BEST, all that, you know, they're with that wiggle. Now, 18th Street traditionally has been a barrio that is very well known and that has been known to take on everybody. 18 versus everybody. At one point, they were in the hat. They had a green light on their barrio and they held it down for their own. Now, of course, I know other barrios and other groups have done that, like Maravillas, and we're going to get into them another time and they will make a whole different list. But I'm just talking about the biggest, the largest, the barrios that everybody is watching right now that are worldwide, and that's Calle 18, man. Respects to them vatos because they wiggle a certain way. Now, they have always got the bad, people. They had a bad taste and put bad taste in people's mouth where people said, well, the reason they're so deep is they take anyone into 18. Charlie, that's not the case. The case is that they're just a well-known barrio that has been around for several years, very mainstream, that a lot of people want to be from. I can't call it like an alcoholic. When I was little, I knew about 18. They said, what's a gang? I said, 18th Street. I didn't even really know, but I knew. Anyways, this is a group that has been giving the Feds fits for several years, and it is a group that they've been watching close on their radar. How do I know this? I Googled it. Bang, bang. It's that easy to get content. Anyways, with that being said, man, these are just some of the groups that they're looking at. There's many more, man. And for those of you that are from a barrio like Maravilla right now, you're looking at me like, bitch ass, didn't even mention my hood. Respects to your body, man. We will get to that on a second list. I just wanted to say these are the top 10 that have popped up in my mind. Once again, the Mongols, the NF, the MA, the AB, the Trinitarios, MS-13, Land King, Barrio Aztecas, Florencia 13, and 18th Street, man. Don't fuck with these cats. They wiggle. With that being said, I hope that you move fast with a purpose. I hope that you get everything that you want coming to you. Remember, at the end of the day, it's about going out there and getting it for your familia. If you run into any of these vatos from these groups, mind your own business. Tunnel vision, vatos, because they ain't playing. Oh, no, they're not playing. allegedly. You know, if you like this, please hit that like and subscribe. There's a notification button going, please, please touch me, right? If not, you can hit that thumbs down, heavy as the head that wears the crown. I'm going to continue to strive and struggle for my familia and do what I do for the gente, for the people, by the people. Menudo time. Bang, bang, the gun.